We continue now at the top of Daf Samach Gimel Amud Beis in Mesechet Yevamos. This is Yevamos Daf 63b. Rav Chia over here continues min hachet, that a person's wife prevents him from sinning. Rashi over here says min hachet hiru aveira, meaning the thoughts of aveira. And the Gemara continues makri le Rav Yehuda le Rav Yitzchak berei. Rav Yehuda read to Rav Yitzchak his son the following pasuk: Umotzi ani mar mimoves eso isha, that it's more bitter than death, the wife. And the Gemara says amar le, so he said back to him kagon man, for example, who, which wife are you talking about? And he said back to him kagon imach, like your mother, that's who I'm talking about. But the Gemara says that doesn't make sense. V'amasni le Rav Yehuda le Rav Yitzchak berei. But there's another story where Rav Yehuda taught Rav Yitzchak his son, ein adam motzi koras ruach ela me'ishto rishon. A person doesn't find real pleasantness except from his first wife. Shenamar, like the pasuk says, Hi mekarcha baruch usmach me'eshes norecha. It says there's simcha from the person's wife. V'yamar le, and in that story he said to him, kagon man, who are you talking about? And he said the same thing, kagon imcha, I'm talking about your mother. So you see a contradiction in terms of how Rav Yehuda was describing his wife. And so the Gemara answers, miskaf skifa va'avure me'avra b'mila. His wife was someone who was forceful, but she was easily appeased. And the Gemara continues, hechi dami isha ra. What's an example of a bad wife? Amar Abaya says, mekashdele tacho, mekashdele puma. While she's setting the table for him, she also is verbally abusing him. And the Gemara continues, Rava Amar, Rava says, mekashdele tach. Another example, she's setting the table from him, she's arranging the table, umahadjele gaba, but she turns her back away from him. In other words, she doesn't have a good relationship with him. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rabbi Chama bar Chanina, Rabbi Chama bar Chanina says, kevan shenasa adam isha, when a person marries a wife, avonosa mispakikin, so his sins, they crumble away. Shenamar, like the pasuk says, isha matzatov, v'yafik ratzon me Hashem. A person finds a wife, he finds goodness, he obtains favor from Hashem. He uses this language of v'yafik, so that's the idea of avonosa mispakikin. And the Gemara continues, b'ma'arav, in the West, they used to say as follows, ki nosav inish itasa, when a person would marry a woman, amri le, they would say to him, hachi, as follows, matzah o motza, did you get a matzah or did you get a motza? Matzah, what does it mean matzah? Dichsiv, like the pasuk says, matzah isha matzah tov, a wife could be good. Or motza, did you get a motza? Dichsiv motza ni mar mimaves as a isha, that even more bitter than death can be the person's wife. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rava, Rava says, Isha ra mitzvah lagarsha, a person has a bad wife, it's a mitzvah to divorce her. Dichsiv, like the pasuk says, Garesh leitz v'yetze madon v'yishbos din v'kolon. And the pasuk means to say that you should drive away the scorner, you should drive away the strife. And the Gemara continues, V'yamar Rav, and Rava says, Isha roch subasa meruba. Let's say you have a woman, she's a bad wife, and she has a ksuba that's very costly, so it's difficult to divorce her. So tzarasa betzida, what it means is the co-wife is at her side, meaning what's going to end up happening is you'll take a co-wife instead. The Amriinchi, as people say, b'chaverta v'lo b'silta. Drive her away with a peer, don't drive her away with a thorn. And the Gemara continues, V'yamar Rav, and Rava says, Kasha isha roch yom sagrer, a bad wife is as troublesome as a rainy day. Shenemar, like the pasuk says, Delef Tored biyom sagrir ve'eshes midyonim nishtav. The pasuk over here is equating the drops that come down on a rainy day and a wife who's a bad wife. And the Gemara continues, V'yamar Rav, and Rava says, Borei kamatova isha tova ve'kamara isha ra. Come and see how good is a good wife and how bad is a bad wife. Kamatova isha tova, how good is a good wife? Tichsiv, like the pasuk says, Matzah isha matzah tov. If he finds a wife, he finds good. Ibegava mishtoikra. Now, if you understand the pasuk that it's actually talking about a wife, it's not a metaphor. So kamatova isha tova. Look what the pasuk is saying. How good is a good wife? Shakasa mishabcha. That's what the pasuk is praising her. And ibetorah mishtoikra. And if you take this pasuk as a metaphor and it's really talking about the Torah, kamatova isha tova, you still see how good a good wife is. Shatorah nimshalaba, that the Torah is being compared to her. And similarly, the Gemara says, kamara isha ra. Look how bad a bad wife is. Tichsiv, like the pasuk says, umotze ani mar mimaves eso isha. It says more bitter than death is the wife. And the same idea, ibegava mishtoikra. If the pasuk is actually talking about the wife, it's not a metaphor. So kamara isha ra. Look how bad the bad wife is. Shakasav megana, because the pasuk is saying bad about her. And ibegehenim mishtoikra. If you take the pasuk as a metaphor and it's talking about gehenim, so the same idea, kamara isha ra, shegehenim nimshalaba. How bad is a bad wife? The gehenim is being compared to her. And the Gemara continues quoting a pasuk in Yirmiyahu, Hineni mevi ra asher lo yuchlu lotzeis mimena. There's going to be evil, you won't be able to get out of it. You won't be able to escape. What does that mean? Gemara says, Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rabba bar Avur. Rav Nachman says in the name of Rabba bar Avur, Zu isha ra uchsubasa meruba. It's referring to a bad wife, and she has a large ksuba, so it's impossible to get rid of her. And the Gemara continues, Nisanani Hashem biyadi lo uchal kum. This is a pasuk from Eicha, and the Gemara says, Amar Rav Chisda, Amar Maruk v'Barchia. Rav Chisda says in the name of Maruk v'Barchia, same basic idea, Zu Isha Ra. This pasuk also, it's talking about something you can't get out of, so therefore it means to say it's a bad wife, uchsubasa meruba, and she has a large ksuba. Same idea as before. And the Gemara continues, B'ma'arava Amru, in the West they say, Zeshim is onosav teluyin bekaspa. What it's referring to is somebody whose food, whose sustenance is dependent upon his money, meaning to say this person is forced to purchase food, he doesn't have land of his own. That's what this pasuk is saying, is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu put me in a situation that I can't get out of. That's a bad situation. And the Gemara continues, Banechu v'nosecha nesunim la'macher. The pasuk says, this is in the Tochacha, it says your children are going to be given over to another nation. What does that mean? And so the Gemara says, Amar Rav Chanan bar Rava Amar Rav. Rav Chanan bar Rava says the name of Rav, Zu Eishes Ha'av, that refers to a stepmother. In other words, to say your children are being given over to another mother. And the Gemara continues, the pasuk says, Begoy naval achisem, I'm going to anger them with a vile nation, I'm going to provoke them. And the Gemara says, Amar Rav Chanan bar Rava Amar Rav. Rav Chanan bar Rava says in the name of Rav, Zu Isha Ra uchsubasa meruba. This pasuk also refers to a bad wife with a large ksuba. And the Gemara continues, Rabbi Eliezer Amar Rabbi Eliezer says, Elu hatzidukim. The pasuk here is actually referring to the tzidukim. V'chein hu omer, and likewise it says in the pasuk, Amar novel belibo ein elokim. The novel, when it refers to a novel, that's somebody who says in his heart that there is no God. And the Gemara continues, B'masnisa Tana, in the Braisa was taught, Elu anshe barbaria v'anshe martinoi shemahalchin arumim b'shuk. This refers to the people of Barbaria and the people of Martinoi. They walk around naked in the marketplace. Shein lach meshukatz u'mesoav l'fnei hamakom. Nobody is more abominable in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu yoster mimir shemahalech b'shuk aram, more than somebody who walks in the marketplace naked. And the Gemara continues, Rabbi Yochanan Amar Rabbi Yochanan says, you know what the pasuk is referring to? The goy novel achisem elu chaborim. This refers to the chaborim. This was a Persian sect. And the Gemara continues, Amru leila Rabbi Yochanan, they said to Rabbi Yochanan, Asu Chabari leBavel. The Chabarim, this Persian sect, they've arrived in Bavel. And so the Gemara says, Shagon Nafal, it says that Rabbi Yochanan, he shuddered and he fell out of his chair. Amru le, but then they said to Mekabli Shoch, they said they accept bribery, they won't cause trouble if you give them money. So Taretz Yosef, so then he sat back up again and he was relieved to hear that they could accept bribes. And the Gemara continues, relevant to the Chabarim, Gozru al Gimel mibnei Gimel, because of 3 sins that Klal Yisrael did, they were able to make 3 decrees against us. Gozru al Habasar, they were able to make a decree against the meat, meaning against doing shchita, mimnei ha-matanos, because of sins that were done in terms of not giving proper matanos to the Kohanim. Gozru al Amerchatzos, they made a decree on the bathhouses, mimnei ha-tvila, because of sins related to immersion, and kamechatati shachve, they also dug up the old graves, mimnei shasmechem biyom edom, that was a punishment for the fact that the Jews used to celebrate even on the secular holidays. Shenemar, like the pasuk says, v'hoisa yad Hashem b'chem u'v'avosechem, it says that the Yad Hashem is going to be against you and your fathers. Amar Rabbi Bar Shmuel, zu chatute shachvi. Rabbi Bar Shmuel says that pasuk, the punishment it's referring to, is the fact that the graves are going to be dug up. D'yamar mar, because the master said, ba'avon chaim, it's only because of the sins of those who are alive, mesim mischatetin, that the dead, they become dug up, they're disgraced in this manner. And the Gemara continues, Amar le Rava l'Rabba bar Mori, Rava said to Rabba bar Mori, Ksiv, the pasuk says, lo yeyosvu lo yikavru l'domen al pnei ha'adamayu. It says they're not going to get a proper burial, they'll be like manure on the earth. But the pasuk also says, v'nivchar mavis michayim, that death is going to be better than life. So it's like a contradiction. How could it be that death is better than life if even in death there's so much disgrace? And the Gemara says, Amar le, so he said back to him, nivchar mavis l'rashaim, when it comes to the wicked, death is actually preferred. Shelo yichyu b'olam hazeh v'yechtu v'yiplu b'gehenim. It's better than living in olam hazeh and then sinning and then ending up in Gehenim. And the Gemara continues, Kasav b'sefer ben Sira, the following is written in the Sefer, in the book of Ben Sira, Isha tova matana tova l'balo, chsiv tova b'chek yirei elokim tinasen. It says that a good wife is like a good gift for her husband, and good will be given in the bosom of those who fear God. But Isha ra, when it comes to a bad wife, tzaras l'bala, that's like tzaras for her husband. Ma'ita kante, what's the solution? Yigarshena, he should divorce her. V'yisrapi mitzaratu, then he'll be healed from his tzaras. Isha yafa ashrei bala, beautiful woman, her husband is fortunate. Misbar yomav kiflayim, it's like he has lived double the amount of time in his life. And the Sefer Ben Sira continues, you should turn your eyes away from a beautiful woman, meaning the wife of somebody else. Maybe you'll be entrapped by her. You shouldn't be by her husband and pour with him wine and alcohol. Because many people have become destroyed because of a beautiful woman. Many of her victims, there are many of them. Many of the peddlers become wounded, meaning to say they travel around and they meet these women and they become wounded because of it. They become entrapped. And the Sefer Ben Sira continues, Hamargilim lidvar erva ki nitzot ma'avir gachelas. Those who are accustomed to situations of arayos, it's like a spark that can ignite the coal. Kechluv molei of. It's like you have a cage that's filled with birds. Kain bateyem meleyem mirma. So too their houses are filled with all kinds of deceit. And the Sefer Ben Sira continues, Al totzar tzaras mocher. Don't worry about the enemy of tomorrow. Kilo seda mayeled yom. You don't know what's going to be today. Shema mocher ba veinenu. Maybe tomorrow is going to come and your enemy, your adversary is not going to be there anymore. Nimsa mitzdara la'olam shein shelo. It comes out you were troubling yourself over something that was never going to happen in the first place. Don't worry too much, in other words, about the future. You should prevent the crowds from coming into your house. Don't let everybody into your house. You should have many people who seek out your peace. You should have many allies. But you should only reveal secrets to 1 in 1,000. Don't tell your secrets to many people. And the Gemara continues. Rabbi Yasi says, Ein ben David Ben David is not going to come. Mashiach is not going to come until all of the souls that are destined to be created have inhabited bodies. Shenemar, like the pasuk says, Ki ruach milfan hayato v'neshamos ani asisi. I've made these souls. This was a Gemara that was quoted earlier. And the Gemara continues. Tanya, we learned in a brayso. Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Eliezer says, Kol mi she'ein osek b'pirya v'ribya. Anybody who does not have children, who does not fulfill the mitzvah pru'uravu, ki ilu shofech damim. It's like he's committing murder. Shenemar, like the pasuk says, Shofech dam ha'adam ba'adam damo yishafech uchsiv basrei v'atem pru'uravu. Right next to each other, talks about murder, talks about pru'uravu, so the two are compared. Rabbi Yaakov says, Ki'ilu memayit hadamus. It's like you're minimizing the demus of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the image of God. Shenemar, like the pasuk says, Ki b'tzelem Elokim asa es ha'adam. Man is made in the image of God. So if you don't deal with the mitzvah of pru'uravu, it's like you're minimizing in the tzelem Elokim. Uchsib basrei. Right after that pasuk, it says v'atem pru v'gomer. Again, it says pru'uravu near that pasuk. Ben Azai says, Ki'ilu shofech damim umemayit hadamus. It's like doing both. It's like committing murder and minimizing the image of God. Shenemar, like the pasuk says, v'atem pru'uravu. Again, it compares them both to pru'uravu. Amru lo Ben Azai. They said to Ben Azai, Yesh no adoresh v'no mekayim. There's some people who say nice drushes, and they also fulfill their own drushes. No mekayim ve'in no adoresh. There's some people who fulfill, but they don't darshan well. V'aton no adoresh. But you darshan well, ve'in no mekayim, but you don't fulfill it. In other words, they were telling Ben Azai he didn't have children, he didn't fulfill his own drasha. Amar lehen Ben Azai. So Ben Azai said to them, Uma esa, but what else can I do? Shenafshi chashka b'Torah. My soul desires Torah. So therefore he was saying he prefers to learn Torah rather than getting married and having children. And the Gemara continues, after liolam she'eskayim al yadei acherim, that Ben Azai said the world can continue through others, it does not need to continue through me. And the Gemara continues, Tanya Idach, we learned in another brayso, Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Rabbi Eliezer says, Kol mi she'ein osek b'pirya v'ribya, anyone who doesn't deal with the mitzvah pru'uravu, ki'ilu shofech damim, it's as if he spills blood, shenemar shofech dam ha'adam, v'samach lei v'atem pru v'gomer, same idea. It says pru'uravu near the pasuk that deals with murder. And the Gemara continues along the same lines. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah Omer, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says, Ki'ilu memayit hadamus. It's like minimizing the image of God. Ben Azai Omer v'chulu. Then the same quote from Ben Azai as before. Amru lo Ben Azai yesh no adorish v'chulu. And then the same response to the fact that Ben Azai did not get married and have children. The Gemara continues, Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Uvenucha Yomer, when it would come to rest, he would say, Shuva Hashem, return Hashem, Rivavos Alpha Yisrael, the tens of thousands and the thousands of Israel. And we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Samech Dalid Amud Aleph.